or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Karen, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the April 26, 2026 issue of the Viewpoints section of the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Okay, our first article is titled, Independent Bookstores Are Booming. As a blizzard blasted the East Coast in late February, 1,000 booksellers from independent bookstores across the United States packed their winter gear, changed flights, and braved snow to get to Pittsburgh by any means possible. They were there to attend an annual industry event, but this year was not like the previous ones. A spirit of community and resistance ran through every interaction. In part, that reflected a surge in the number of bookstores in the United States. According to the American Booksellers Association, 422 new bookstores opened in 2025, a 31% jump from 2024. Coming out of COVID, people realize life is too short to do something you are not passionate about. Allison Hill, chief executive of the association, told me. The event in Pittsburgh, Winter Institute, was the biggest one yet, with registration selling out in 40 minutes and hundreds of people on the waiting list. The energy there also reflected the role that bookstores are playing at this moment in American history. Amid fear, frustration, and anger, booksellers are providing resources and spaces for learning, organizing, and respite. Independent bookstores have long been considered third spaces, that place separate from home and work where you can build community. In my hometown of Austin, Texas, Jean Buckner runs Vintage Books and Wine, recommending wine and audiobook pairings. A recent pairing, Simply More by Cynthia Erivo with Artemania Exarment, Arabico Texiclina, 2024. Reparations Club in Los Angeles hosts a Read the Room book club where attendees sit together and read whatever they desire. Blackbird Bookstore in San Francisco recently introduced a monthly pie and board game night. Matter in Denver is not just a bookstore, but a revolutionary print shop where locals can attend printmaking classes. Comma in Minneapolis, Black Garnet in St. Paul, Minnesota, and other bookstores have been at the forefront of distributing resources to those affected by immigration raids in the area. Interestingly, bookstore chain Barnes & Noble has adjusted its business strategy to match that of independent bookstores, giving each location more ownership over its design and introducing shelf talkers and curated staff picks. But the company is owned by a hedge fund, and many readers opt to shop small regardless. There's a saying in the book world that nobody opens a bookstore to get rich. Most likely, many of these new bookstores will not survive beyond 5 years. It's a tough business, one that brings enormous economic and political challenges. Margins are razor thin, often 1% to 3% of revenue. Every book sale matters. When Amazon launched in the 1990s, independent bookstores had 30% of the market share. Today, that number is around 7%. But what's becoming all the more clear and important is how these stores are building these third spaces in the shadow of giant tech companies, especially Amazon. Shopping at an independent bookstore has, for many, become a form of protest. When Amazon ran a counter sale last year during Independent Bookstore Day, an annual event that takes place the last Saturday of April, the move backfired. The giant triggered a wave of support for independent bookstores that gave many their biggest day of sales ever. People are more aware now that how and where they spend their money is powerful. Booksellers see that up close. Take Dilpreet Kainth, founder of Queen's Book Bazaar in New York. Chatting after a full day of sessions, she told me how she burned out working in corporate media. I really wanted to do something that would make a difference and actually support my local community, Kainth said. She knew she made the right choice when, at her store's South Asian-inspired book fair, local residents came up to her to express their excitement. Or Janine Sickmeyer, who left the tech world to open Storyline in Upper Arlington, Ohio, because she wanted to build something tangible and local, an everyday gathering place where stories bring people together. Today, her store hosts 8 book clubs, and members have transitioned from strangers to travel companions. All the hard work feels completely worth it, she said. It's a reminder that this was never just about the books we read. It's also about how the new stories we're creating with people we might never have met otherwise. Despite the economic headwinds, ongoing censorship challenges, and a decline in reading rates, the energy in the independent bookstore industry is one of defiance and is animating shops nationwide. Booksellers new and old are giving it their all to rally their communities around books and to bring people together. As LeVar Burton said in his keynote address at Winter Institute, y'all really do make a difference in this world. Okay, next we have doom scrolling dangers are a worthy legal target. What if the next time you doom scrolled through Instagram X or TikTok, you reached an endpoint? It's hard to imagine. The so-called infinite scroll has become such a fixture of social media that our dopamine receptors have come to expect it, even though it's a time suck that undermines our mental health and serves no real purpose other than to keep us glued to an app for as long as possible. A new law being drafted by the European Commission is designed to turn this and other similar engagement hacks off by default, targeting some of the psychological tricks that tech firms had long borrowed from the gambling world. The Digital Fairness Act, DFA, aims to tackle notification designs harnessing variable rewards, a tactic that dispenses a stimulus inconsistently, like the whirring dials of a slot machine, to keep you checking your phone. Internal research from Meta Platforms Incorporated shows that batching notifications about likes and comments in a cluster gets stronger engagement than pinging them individually in real time. And the law will target autoplay when a video on YouTube starts before you've decided to watch it. The forthcoming act, tabled by Commissioner Michael McGrath, addresses the ways tech firms manipulate consumer behavior. It targets subscription traps and dark patterns, with deceptive design tricks like pre-selecting a checkbox or sneaking an insurance policy into your shopping cart, and critically, forces tech firms to turn off addictive design by default. If Instagram users want their endless news feed back, they'll have to go to their settings to turn it on. The act is scheduled for publication in late 2026. Its rules will theoretically come into force sometime between 2028 and 2030. The proposals might sound unrealistic given these features are the emotional engine of a social media firms and critical to their profitability. But Meta might not need an endless scroll to succeed. Some users have spotted Facebook's short-form video feature, Reels, quietly experimenting with limits to the videos you can swipe through on a news feed. And Slack, the workplace messaging platform owned by Salesforce Incorporated, already has a template for killing the endless scroll. It tells app users who thumb through all their notifications you're all caught up, leaving them no further content to scratch their dopamine itch. Europe has a short but critical window of opportunity to push through the new rules following a Los Angeles jury verdict in March that found Meta and Alphabet Inc. Google liable for the addictive design of their platforms, while a raft of countries like Australia, Greece, the United Kingdom, Austria, Spain, Denmark, Poland, and France have either enacted or are considering social media bans for kids. The momentum is global and crosses courts, governments, and the public. Nearly half of American teens believe social media has a mostly negative effect on their peers, according to the Pew Research Center. But there's a risk the commission will fumble. It has shifted to a deregulation agenda under Ursula von der Leyen, who has made competitiveness her signature issue, and tech companies have capitalized on those vibes to frame the DFA as an antithesis to growth. Lobbyists also argue that the DFA duplicates key aspects of the Digital Services Act, DSA, which also covers manipulative and addictive software design. But enforcement of that law is painfully slow and arguably ineffective, requiring claimants to prove manipulation in court, which can take years. In the case of TikTok, for instance, the Commission has opened 4 separate DSA investigations since 2024, yet the addictive features that prompted the first investigation are still in place. The DFA's approach is potentially clearer, prohibiting addictive design upfront rather than requiring years of litigation. That's hogwash, of course. The biggest drag on European innovation and tech is a lack of domestic funding, not regulation, and the new rules are more likely to hurt tech leviathans whose size and network effects contribute to their addictive quality. Tech lobbyists argue otherwise, and vehemently. Commission officials have held nearly 100 meetings with various organizations about the DFA since December 2024, roughly 83% of them with tech industry representatives, according to the Corporate Europe Observatory, a nonprofit research and campaign group. The industry seems to be aiming at getting the DFA completely off the table, says Bram Franken, a researcher at Observatory, noting that the bloc already proposed watering down its AI Act and General Data Protection Regulation last November. But the court cases also give a push to be more ambitious than the Commission was planning to be, Franken adds. It's difficult to predict because this can go either way. One plausible outcome, the act gets diluted, so it only applies to children. That would only win half the battle, since everyone is affected by addictive design patterns, and the DFA represents a surgical approach that complements the blunt instrument of blanket bans. When I asked McGrath's spokesperson about lobbying risk, they said the commissioner would table an ambitious proposal when the law is published. One second here. McGrath who was scheduled to travel to San Francisco last week, faces an uphill battle. His law could lead to the kind of sweeping rules that helped break the stranglehold of big tobacco in the 1990s, which followed a combination of litigation, regulation, and public opinion. Social media is facing a similar tipping point. The LA jury trial focused entirely on design decisions like autoplay, infinite scroll, and recommendation algorithms that send up users down rabbit holes, establishing that those features were deliberate and known to cause harm. It's a landmark decision providing a moral and legal foundation on which the DFA can make its case as he gets pummeled with demands to water down his proposals over the course of this year. Let's hope McGrath holds the line. And you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Viewpoints section of the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Rating Service. Okay, under opinion, we have help from government. Polling cars' right to stress county programs that fill crucial gaps. Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz' annual State of the County address may have sounded like a victory lap as usual. The state of the county is strong, but that's par for the course in such speeches. It's even more excusable because Poloncarz makes an effort to have the facts on his side. Erie County is well governed under Poloncarz. That doesn't mean that the county can escape negative national trends that are making life more difficult for all Americans. There is only so much a county government can do to push back against these headwinds, but the bulk of Poloncarz's address focused on actions and policies that will help. Problem number one is housing, which now comes down to degrees of unaffordability. As Poloncarz noted, the average age of the first-time homebuyers nationwide is 40, up from 28 in 1991. Erie County may be at the less punishing end of that spectrum, but Poloncarz's right to propose mortgage help for first-time buyers as well as promote more multi-unit housing throughout the county. That would require municipalities that only allow single-family housing to change their zoning laws, a shift that Poloncarz would incentivize. Let's hope those suburbs are amenable. Lack of housing, not taxes, is a primary reason people are leaving Erie County and New York State. Problem number two, again, a national trend, is higher poverty rates amongst area seniors and those who have not finished high school. For the latter group, education is key, especially training in high-need careers like healthcare and specialized trades, which can often be completed relatively quickly. Poloncarz cited programs and financial help that would help people get that training. The county executive also cited the importance of area seniors accessing long-standing assistance programs. Those who know how long the Home Energy Assistance Program, HEAP, and the Supplemental Food Assistance Program, SNAP, have been around will be surprised to learn that as many as 59% of eligible seniors aren't enrolled in either. Poloncarz rightly stresses that outreach efforts must try harder to reach people who might be going hungry in order to pay a utility bill. Indeed, helpful programs with acronyms abound, but too many people don't know about them. How about ECLIPSE, Erie County Low Income Program for Sustainable Energy, which can reduce electricity costs by 10% by connecting residents to solar farms. Then there is Empower Plus, which helps identify and fund energy efficiency improvements. Buffalonians worrying about the upcoming property tax increase should think about STAR. According to Mayor Sean Ryan, up to 60% of eligible Buffalo homeowners aren't taking advantage of this and other property tax exemption programs. County parks continue to improve, with more acreage being added to Red Jacket Park along the Buffalo River this year, and progress at Willowdale, which will hopefully provide a happy ending to a tedious development battle. Another drawn-out effort, Erie Net Broadband Internet Service, is, according to Pulling Cars, entering its next phase, with build-out completed this year. A final nuts and bolts issue that most people don't even care to talk about is rodent control, but all of the quality of life issues, this is one of the most distressing. Rats will always be with us, but as Poloncarz mentioned, those who take advantage of the County Department of Health has a baiting program and prevention advice that can find relief. The state of the county may be strong, but it cannot escape being undermined by federal missteps like tariffs, the slashing of safety net programs, or the economic ill effects of war. Under Poloncarz, county government is doing what it can to alleviate national stress points while upgrading the amenities that make life better and address common needs. It's what residents anywhere in the U.S. hope for from their political leadership, but they don't always get it. Okay, next, still under opinions. America must strive to keep AI firmly out of our classrooms. And this is by Jonah Goldberg. Norway is, by almost any metric, a profoundly successful nation. It's rich, democratic, and relatively corruption-free. It's not a socialist country, but fans of a robust welfare state and high taxes see much to admire in the progressive Norwegian model. It also benefits from having the biggest and arguably best-run sovereign wealth fund in the world. Yet Norway nearly ruined its children. In 2016, flush with cash and progressive values, Norway gave every child starting at 5 their own iPad or similar digital device. A decade later, young Norwegians now struggle to read. Around 500,000 Norwegians in a population of only 5.6 million cannot read a text message or simple instructions. The Times London reports. Of the 65 countries measured for children's employment of reading, it's at the bottom. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store launched a program in August to deal with the problem. Norwegian children used to be among the best readers in the world, he said at the time. But today, 15,000 pupils finish primary school without being able to read properly. Now imagine giving every child an AI chatbot to answer their questions. Given Norway's experience with iPads, or our own with smartphones, I worry that the mass introduction of AI, particularly in schools, will be very, very bad for children. As a curmudgeon and as a writer, I hate nearly all of the cliches about children. With that caveat, it's true that children will be the next generation of parents, voters, and citizens. And all of the cliches about how kids learn by doing are true. AI removes the doing. Just as you can't learn how to ride a bike from reading a book, you can't get the benefits of reading by asking AI to read a book for you. The same holds for math, science, computer programming, and nearly every aspect of education. Our military is the finest and most lethal in the world. But before you learn how to operate a drone or launch a cyber attack, you have to go through basic training. Education is basic training for civilization. Americans love technology, but not every technological advancement is an advancement in every sphere of life. Using a machine to think for you is the route to mental flabbiness. Fans of AI don't like this argument. They use terms like cognitive shift and upskilling. By removing the drudge work, smart people can use AI to be smarter and more productive. This has a lot of merit for highly skilled workers. But how did those workers become highly skilled? By doing the work. Educators learned a similar lesson with cheap calculators in the 1970s. As you got more advanced, you could use calculators for certain problems. But first, you needed to learn how to do the basics. You also needed to learn to think mathematically. AI is essentially a souped-up calculator for nearly all mental tasks. That's often, but not always, great for adults who grew up in a pre-AI world, which is why education should mostly stay in the pre-AI world. That will require more memorization, more tests in the classroom, and an education establishment that can resist the seduction of technological fads. If the point of education is to build muscle memory for how to think and do things, letting kids go home and have AI give them the answers is not very different educationally from letting kids cheat. The point of education in the AI era shouldn't be how to teach kids how to find the answers in the most efficient way, but to equip them to be ready to ask the right kinds of questions, including the ability to ask an AI chatbot why it gave you the answers it did. Okay, next, under opinion, why are Americans not working as hard as they once did? I came across a statistic the other day that goes against intuition of practically everyone in the U.S. who has a job. Americans are working less than they did in the 1950s and 60s. How is this possible when we all feel chained to our desks and our phones? Yes, we still work more than almost anyone else, especially the Europeans with their long vacations and 35-hour work weeks. But the gap is closing. Not only are Americans working fewer hours per week, but people in other wealthy nations are working more. At this rate, we'll soon be working as hard as the French. As it turns out, this phenomenon may be best explained by the decline of men in the workforce rather than a general rise in American indolence. Still, the implications for the U.S. economy and the federal budget are profound. Right after World War II, it was the Europeans who worked harder than everyone else. But as they rebuilt their economies and constructed huge welfare states, their working hours fell. They now work much less than the rest of the world. Americans' working hours also declined in the 1950s, but started to increase in the 60s and accelerate in the 1980s and 90s before leveling out and then falling in the 2010s. Meanwhile, Europeans started working more in the 2010s. The gap between the U.S. and other rich countries has been cut in half. A new paper explores why this might be. It suggests that one reason might be the expansion of Medicaid. In 1970, the program covered about 20 million people, or roughly 10% of the U.S. population. By 2020, those figures were 100 million and 30%. Medicaid can be a disincentive to work, because if someone on Medicaid takes a job or just works more hours, they could lose their health benefits or have to pay more for them. Some research estimates that Medicaid income limits can act as a 100% tax on work. At any rate, this decline in working hours is turning into a problem. Some older Americans are shut out of the labor market because of age discrimination or lack of suitable jobs. Meanwhile, some part-time workers can't find full-time reliable work. What's unclear is whether these trends are getting worse or will get better. Technology offers people more ways to work for themselves. A more concrete concern is that this phenomenon of working less is concentrated among men and lower income Americans. Now, higher earners work more hours than people who earn less. As for the gender gap, according to the American Time Youth Survey, working hours for men and women who have jobs has been fairly stable since 2003. The drop in overall working hours comes mostly from people who don't work, especially men. Fewer men are in the labor force in Europe too, but that's because of earlier retirement and longer life expectancy. In 2010, only 8% of European men ages 25 to 54 were out of labor force, compared with 11% in the U.S. Youth unemployment tends to be higher in Europe, but at least there is a trend of working more while the U.S. is going in the wrong direction. It's possible to structure benefits in a way that encourages work, of course, but the larger point is that none of this is sustainable. Both America and Europe have aging populations that will be increasingly expensive to care for. And if people are working less, that means there will be less tax revenue to pay for those benefits. Europe has taken a step in the right direction, but it still has further to go. Meanwhile, between growing its welfare state and shrinking its working hours, the U.S. may be accelerating its reckoning too. And you're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Viewpoints section of the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And a few of these from everybody's column. Generations of Sabres fandom converge. It was 1975 and my mother was an avid Sabres fan. When the Sabres lost the final round of the Stanley Cup to the Philadelphia Flyers, my mother made up her mind. The next time she would be ready. She obtained a large box of ticket stubs from the Memorial Auditorium, and together we tore them into confetti, anticipating the playoffs. We tore and waited a year after year. Life shifted. The Aud with its gold, red, blue, and orange seats was demolished. My mom's fandom expanded, and the Sabres have changed too. The confetti stayed tucked away as seasons and teams came and went. Decades later, at 84, Mom has asked about that box in her basement, her long-held hope still alive. I found it, memories tumbling out with the faded scraps of color in time. Why now, I wonder what makes her think this time is different. Now my son is off to his first Sabres playoff game, and Mom wants him to carry the confetti torch. Security might not allow it, but just imagine 50-year-old ticket stub confetti swirling in the air, linking generations united by one dream, to bring a Stanley Cup to Buffalo for the Sabres organization and fans who have been eagerly and patiently waiting for such a long time. And now we'll read some hints from Heloise. Dear Heloise, when I am getting dressed, I put on a makeup and hair protector hood. You just put it on and zip it up. Your hair stays in place, and makeup doesn't get on your clothes. I stick one in my purse when I go clothes shopping. Terry from Ohio. Terry, these are indeed very handy, and the net ones can be hand washed and reused. You can purchase these online. Just type in where to buy a makeup hood. News from afar. Dear Heloise, I love the corny old-fashioned letters at Christmas from family and friends. I don't feel left out on various news and happenings. At 84 years old, I can remember when writing a letter was fun, and receiving a letter was even better. I hope these letters never stop coming unless I'm no longer on this earth. It's a lost art, but there are a few things in this world that I enjoy as much as getting a nice long letter, especially from one of my 5 sisters, my 3 brothers, or their children. Belinda from Massachusetts. Grammar Sound Off. Dear Heloise, I recently enjoyed the letter entitled Using Proper American English, after which I simply had to weigh in with a few of my own long-standing pet peeves. One never fails to strike me with all the subtlety of nails scraping across a chalkboard is the increasingly common phrase, me and him are going to the football game. The correct form, of course, is he and I are going to the football game, since both pronouns are acting as the subject. The same issue appears on the other side. I often hear people say, Bob sends letters to him and I, which is equally jarring. Even someone with the loosest relationship to grammar wouldn't say Bob sent a letter to I, which makes the error all more puzzling. The correct form is Bob sent the letters to him and me, because both pronouns are receiving the action. My only wish is that news programs with their layers of writers, editors, and teleprompters would take greater care with the language they present. When a broadcaster says, when we return from commercials, me and my co-host will be updating you on the governor's race, rather than the correct wording, me and my co-host and I will be updating you on the governor's race. It carries an unintended authority simply because it's spoken from behind a news desk. Children hear it and assume that it represents standard English. It would be reassuring if the institutions we rely on for information also modeled the language with the precision it deserves, so that the next generation inherits clarity rather than confusion. Okay, next we have from Buffalo Next in the Buffalo News. Income gap getting wider. When it comes to income, it really is a family affair. And in the Buffalo Niagara region, the incomes in our households aren't growing as fast as they are across the rest of the country. Over the 5 years that ended in 2024, the most recent data available, household incomes locally grew by 20.5%, or a little more than 4% a year. But that was less than the 21.9% growth nationwide. And the picture is even worse if you go back farther. Over the 10 years ending in 2024, Buffalo Niagara household incomes grew by just under 46%, compared to 56% increase across the U.S., according to U.S. Census Bureau data. That's a sizable difference, and it shows how, over time, small variations can add up to significant amounts of money. In 2014, household incomes here were $3,000 lower than the national median. In 2024, the difference is more than $10,000. How much an individual family earns often is more meaningful than difference in earnings between the individuals in a family. How much they spend hinges on how much the entire household earns. And the household income figures indicate that families here have less money to spend than a typical U.S. family. Now, there are regional differences to factor in, too. The cost of living in the Buffalo Niagara region is pretty close to the national average, but someone living in an expensive area like San Francisco would need a much bigger income to purchase those same items. But income is the fuel for the economy, and more income fuels more spending, which fuels more business creation and more expansions and more hiring, and results in the type of economic growth that has been so hard to come by in the Buffalo Niagara region. And now under retail, Gap Factory store to open location at Quaker Crossing. The bustling Quaker Crossing Retail Center in Orchard Park will add a Gap factory outlet store later this year. The apparel and accessories retailer closed the store at Walden Galleria in January. Gap has long been a mall staple, but has migrated some stores to off-mall spaces in recent years as consumers have changed shopping habits, preferring outdoor power centers that are easy to navigate by car. The company, which also owns Banana Republic, has closed hundreds of stores in the past few years as part of that push away from enclosed shopping malls. The same happened with beleaguered chain Claire's Boutique, a youth jewelry and accessories concept that also previously left McKinley Mall and now has a home at Quaker Crossing. The outlet store is expected to open in late summer or early fall in the former lumber liquidation space. There is another Gap factory location at the Fashion Outlets of Niagara Falls, USA. The Paper Store introduces Uncharted. The Paper Store, a family-founded retail chain based in Massachusetts, has one of its namesake lifestyle gift shops in Amherst Power Center, the Boulevard. Now the company has introduced a new concept to the Buffalo Niagara market called Uncharted. Described as more upscale than the Paper Store, Uncharted offers fashion, beauty, home decor, jewelry, and more. It's located at 5097 Transit Road in Clarence and is the third New York location after ones in Nassau and Onondaga counties. The Paper Store has more than 100 stores across the Northeast, Florida, Illinois, and Maryland. And Dry Bar opens. Western New York's first Dry Bar has opened. The national hairstyling chain cut the ribbon last week on its latest location at 6011 Main Street in Williamsville. The company was founded in 2008 and rose to prominence with high-profile pop culture references. It's known for introducing its no cuts, no color, just blowouts business model, which was considered a disruptor in the beauty industry. On McKinley Parkway in Amherst, Picone Construction is in the process of giving European Wax Center, now at 3772 McKinley Parkway, an interior build-out as it prepares to move across the street to a smaller plaza at 3835 McKinley Parkway. The personal care salon offers body and face waxing services, as well as eyebrow tinting and laser hair removal. Wax Center has locations in Amherst and Williamsville. The company is headquartered in Texas. Goodwill revamps North Buffalo shop. Goodwill has given its North Buffalo thrift store in the Delaware Place Plaza an overhaul, and CEO Thomas Ulbrich is holding it out as an example of the nonprofit's teamwork and business acumen. Located at 2625 Delaware Avenue, the store recently completed a makeover that improved layout and flow at the shop. What I respect most isn't the outcome, it's the mindset behind it, he wrote on LinkedIn. The Goodwill of Western New York team understands that standing still is not an option. Changes at the store include better signs throughout the store with clearer categories and wayfinding, and an added cash register in a reimagined checkout area, and a new shoe department at the front of the store. The housewares department has nearly doubled in size, and there is an improved drive-up donation area for faster, easier drop-off where donors no longer need to leave their vehicles. Capital investment isn't just about dollars, Ulbrich said on LinkedIn. It's a signal. It tells your team that you believe in the future. It tells your customers you're paying attention. It tells your community you're here to serve at a high level. And you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Viewpoints and Next section of the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Next we have, under Personal Finance, Hidden Expenses, 5 spring surprises that can catch a fixed budget off guard. Spring is in the air, but if you aren't careful, it can drain your wallet. That's particularly true for retirees on a fixed income who haven't planned for the additional expenses that crop up as the flowers bloom and the weather gets warmer. Spring often brings a cluster of expenses. These expenses can surprise and affect almost everyone to some degree, but retirees may feel it more because it is a fixed income, says Tiana Matillo, financial advisor manager at Vanguard. That makes planning even more important because unanticipated seasonal costs may require drawing more heavily from savings or investment accounts. Here's a look at 5 unexpected seasonal expenses and how you can manage them without derailing your retirement. 1. Home maintenance. When it comes to unexpected spring expenses, home maintenance is a big one. From tending to the lawn to ensuring the HVAC is working, numerous things could require TLC and thus money after the winter. For retirees, it presents an additional challenge if they aren't able to do the work themselves. Common spring expenses often begin with home and property upkeep, such as HVAC servicing, roof or gutter repairs after winter weather, landscaping, pest control, or even preparing a vacation or second home for use, Patillo says. The average cost to service an HVAC is about $175 to $350, while professional lawn maintenance can cost $100 to $500 per month, depending on the size of your yard and the frequency of care. If you need to replace your air conditioning, fix the gutters, or repair a roof, it can set you back thousands of dollars. 2. Travel. Whether you are visiting the grandkids or setting out for a bucket list trip, spring is a popular time for retirees to travel, but this comes with a lot of expenses that could be higher than previously thought. That's particularly true in the current environment, when oil prices are surging and geopolitical tensions have erupted global fuel supplies. As of early April, airfares are up 7.1% compared to last year, and the average cost for a gallon of regular gas is $4.08 nationally. Even if you aren't flying, there could be unexpected car maintenance expenses like a post-winter alignment or new tires to handle spring rain. Health and wellness. Number 3. Spring often prompts retirees to address health and wellness needs that may have been postponed during colder months, like dental or vision care, physical therapy, or fitness programs, Patillo says. But focusing on wellness could mean more out-of-pocket expenses. In 2026, those costs are hitting harder. Medicare Part B premiums rose nearly 10% this year, and the annual deductible climbed to $283. Even with insurance, retirees often face a 20% co-insurance for specialized visits and diagnostic tests that aren't considered preventative. 5. Graduations and gifts. Spring marks the beginning of wedding season, graduations, and the busiest time for home buying, which means retirees could be on the hook for significant gifting, whether it's giving your graduating grandchild cash for their next chapter or helping an adult child secure a home in a competitive market. These gestures of love can make a major dent in a retirement nest egg. The average home in America now costs approximately $360,500, according to Zillow. And if you are gifting a 20% down payment to help a family member avoid private mortgage insurance, that is a $72,100 commitment. Even standard $500 graduation gift or $150 to $200 wedding can strain a fixed monthly budget if you haven't set aside the funds in advance. Pet care. Number 5. Pets may require more cash outlays during the warmer months, especially if they spend more time outdoors. To protect them from heartworm, fleas, and ticks, a 6-month supply of preventative medication can set you back anywhere from $150 to $300. Those pharmacy costs are rising alongside professional care. The cost of veterinary services is up more than 5% compared to last year, outpacing general inflation. Let's not forget the lifestyle costs of spring either, between professional grooming to shed that winter coat, the extra treats, and the supplies needed for a spring road trip. Your furry friend can quickly become a major unexpected expense. How you can handle surprise expenses. Unexpected spring expenses could hurt your retirement nest egg. But the good news is that there are ways to mitigate the hit. If you expect to receive a tax refund or other windfall, you can set aside that money in an easily accessible account, such as a high yield savings account, to cover these expenses. In early 2026, many of these accounts offered yields of about 4%, allowing your spring fund to grow while it sits. Shopping around and comparing prices for home repairs, maintenance services, and travel can help lower the expenditures. You also could curb some of your day-to-day expenses. Okay, and this is under my view. High school reunion has surprising setting. Standing outside of a governor's mansion in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on a chilly February night, I had to admit I was a little nervous, not about the gravity of the setting or about any political machinations, but about what I was there for, my high school reunion. When you come from a class of 44 in a small Jewish day school in the Philadelphia suburbs, reunions seem like a remote possibility. With people spread across the country and the world, convening even a few dozen of us would have been difficult. Unbelievably, though, 37 of us, 3/4 of the class, showed up. It was certainly helped that 2 of my former classmates, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and First Lady Lori Shapiro, had agreed to host the occasion. When Josh had floated the idea a decade before, I thought he was crazy, but sure enough, he managed to pull it off. My friend Amy and I were among the first to arrive. We kibitzed for a while as we waited to get through security. Once in, the room quickly filled with familiar faces. After 35 years, I wondered how many of my classmates I would even recognize, but for the most part, everyone looked the same. We had been a close-knit group, some of us having been together since elementary school. The room filled with conversations about old times, the incident where a classmate had supposedly run into Dr. J at a cafe by our school, a conversation about an unfair detention, talk of our championships in both boys, soccer, and basketball. Akiba Hebrew Academy class of 1991 was indeed an impressive bunch, with journalists, lawyers, judges, financiers, psychologists, professors, doctors, musicians, Hollywood big shots, and not just one but 2 rabbis. But on this night, we were teenagers once again. Is it okay if I call you Os? Asked a few asked me about my high school nickname, based on the street I had grown up on, Osage Avenue. I said yes, as other long-lost monikers came out. Mons, Mad Dog, Hut, Taps, Freed, Catch, and so many more I hadn't heard in ages. It was definitely my high school class, but with humility that a few decades of life provides. We had hors d'oeuvres in an atrium filled with portraits of Ben Franklin and William Penn, and then were ushered into a newly furbished dining room. Here, just a year before, an arsonist had attempted to take my classmates' lives on the first night of Passover. Everything was kosher and delicious. The governor had us all sign the menu for one another and gave a rousing speech about what our class meant to him and his family. Best of all were the conversations, catching up with people I hadn't seen in years, meeting other spouses, and learning about all they had been up to. What had been planned for just 2 hours stretched on into the night. If not for a fast-approaching storm, we might have been there through the morning. On the way out, I received a goodie bag and 2 copies of Josh's memoir I had asked him to sign. The night had been truly special. High school for all of us may have been decades in the past, but it clearly impacts our lives, was clearly immeasurable. We're all hoping that sometime in the future, Josh and Lori will host again, maybe next time in the White House. And you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the April 26 issue of the Viewpoints section and next section of the Buffalo News. We read from these Viewpoints section of the Buffalo News every Sunday at 6 p.m. Your reader has been Karen, and thank you very much for listening, and take good care of yourself and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the National Enquirer. At 8 p.m., we have People Magazine. And at 9 o'clock, we have the New York Times Book Review. Stay tuned for these readings and more. And if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, please stay with us. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which